What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of The Bullpen. Today, I got a real badass for you guys on the podcast today, all right? This is actually a guy who earned the nickname Jackknife in high school, right? And we're talking about a serious beast of a dude, okay? Now, there's one thing, this dude, number one, let me just kind of give you guys an idea from my perspective how I know this guy. Number one, we've known each other since high school, right? And this dude's probably one of the strongest dudes physically I've ever met in my life, okay? I mean, he could lift the house, okay? But then at the same time, number one, hardworking son of a bitch. At the exact same time I've known him, he's inspired me with his entrepreneur journey, because even in high school, this dude was doing stuff. I'm like, what? How the hell are you doing this stuff, man? What do you, he's just out, I don't even know. There's doing this and then doing that. He's just making money in high school while he's also doing this and getting his associate's degree in high school or something. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right.
Okay, so I'm like, what the hell? So when I talk to you guys about this guy, known him for a really long time, just an all-around stud, okay? From his work ethic to, his ability to make things happen. I can't wait to introduce our next guest. Let me give you guys an idea, okay? So my brother here, Josh Jackman, has been an entrepreneur since he was 8 years old. No shit. When he started selling cookies and fruit snacks to friends at his elementary school, his drive and ambition landed him into the international packaging market, which I can't wait to talk to you more about, where he sold over $50 million. This dude is 26, by the way, okay? $50 million and maintains an 8-figure packaging portfolio annually. At 26, with a decade of work experience and entrepreneur at heart, Jackman is now the CEO and founder of Pyvott, which I can't wait to tell you guys about because I've been hearing about this since, he first started. It's fucking dope. Pyvott exists to eliminate barriers and authentically connect users, creators, and brands in both online and physical works through the distinct divisions Pyvott Social Platform, Pyvott Pathway, and Pyvott Manufacturing. So there's a lot of shit going on here. I can't wait to unpack for you guys. But Jackknife, Josh Jackman, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
good to see you again, my friend.
It's good to see you too, man. You've been out working your ass off. Haven't seen you in a really long time.
Been a while.
It's been a while since we got, you used to sit down at, what was it, Chubby's and just talk there.
Talk at Chubby's and really anywhere with good food, right?
Yeah, literally anywhere. We just sit down and just talk about stuff. And you're always doing something, man. You're always creating something. And at a very young age, dude, you've been meeting with some high-level people for a very long time. Yeah. And I've always just sat here dude, what the fuck? So, number one, I can't wait to pick your brain more because I think we've always talked, we've always just been around, but it's always been just doing stuff, right? Totally. But now, finally, we're going to get down deep. I'm going to find out for myself. What's your story, man? How the hell have you done all this stuff? How'd you get to this point? Tell us.
Well, first I want to say thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun. It's been fun to watch your journey too. I remember when I remember talking in the living room, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What was that, 3 years ago about both where you wanted to go with Alpha and where we were going with Pyvott, right? Both started about the same time, and so it was a lot of fun and has been fun to see you grow and see the successes that you've had. So really exciting there. So my story, I mean, holy cow, I've got to give a lot of credit to the people that I've had in my life. Everyone from my mom and my grandpa have been tremendous, influencers in my life to the folks that I've been able to rub shoulders with. And, you brought up in high school, I was never a big party guy. No. I like to go and meet people that were where I wanted to be sometime in life, right? And so I had the opportunity to meet with people like Deloy Hansen, the former owner of Real Salt Lake, Ryan, founder of Qualtrics, different high caliber guys and gals.
While you were in high school.
While I was in high school, yeah. It was, and it wasn't easy, right? You had to get past the gatekeepers and you're some little punk 16-year-old and I really want to meet with this guy or gal. But yeah, I would say really what drove me. So when I was young in my teenage years, my parents went through foreclosure, divorce, and bankruptcy all within 6 months. So it was rough, right? I mean, that's not something I would wish on anyone, and definitely not something I thought I'd have in my life. But my dad had some, his phase of life made some bad decisions, and it kind of resulted in what happened. My mom was an absolute saint, and really raised us right. My mom's awesome. I love her. So she was, but she always taught me from a young age, you can have whatever you want in life, but it's probably not going to come from my bank account. I'm probably not going to be the one that helps you get there. And it always rang with me. It's if you want something, go out and get it, but don't expect someone to help you as far as giving it to you, right? There'll be a support system. So anyhow, Really, it just came down to always wanting to improve myself, always do better. It's funny you brought the associate's degree. I'm not a school guy whatsoever. Do not like school, but my mom, to her credit, she's like, look, I will probably never be able to pay for tuition for you guys, but I can help you on an accelerated pathway because of some programs in the high school system. So I was able to graduate high school with my associates while working a job while doing football, wrestling, and powerlifting.
Yeah,
busy.
I mean, you were state champ in wrestling, right? You were, like one of the strongest kids in the state. I want to make sure that's known. You were one of the strongest kids in the state. Didn't you set like some record or something?
I set a squat record. I did take took state personally in the powerlifting the junior year, which was fun. But
built like a brick. So
we're trying. So it's been a lot of fun. But it was fun to really try to excel at these different things all at the same time. And man, I had plenty of failures. There are all sorts of things, and I learned that you've got to focus on a couple key things, because if you try to do everything, you're going to fail at a lot of it. But if you can hyper focus in on 2 or 3 things, you can do really well. And I think we've both seen that, right? If you try to spread yourself too thin in business, you're going to fail. But if you can focus on 2-3 key components, you can really get out there and I like to say put a dent in the universe, right? You can really do things that others wouldn't be able to because you have that drive and that focus, which I think is key.
No question. Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so tell me about, so you had all that success, you're growing up, you're doing all these crazy things, right? And then walk me through, after high school, right? Where did that come from, of like how you just immediately just were in the game doing crazy amounts of sales? Because we both came home from a mission, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And I remember coming home from a mission and I'm like what the hell? I'm looking at you, I'm like, what the hell, bro? You're already out performing at this level, and I'm like, oh, what does he fucking do? That's why we kept going to lunch. I kept I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man?
You were out living the dream playing football. I was just doing boring sales stuff. But
yeah, I got cut. I wasn't very good.
Hey, you're better than I did. I didn't even get that far. No, what happened? It's a funny story. So prior to my mission, again, I would knock on these really nice, beautiful homes' doors, and I'd say, hey, what do you do for work?
You're kidding me. Wait, hold on. You actually went to their homes, neighborhoods, and knocked on their doors?
Absolutely.
You should have filmed that.
I should have. I could have done a TikTok. I know, I could have. The guy that goes up to people in their car, have you seen him?
Yeah.
That's what I was doing to people's houses, essentially.
That's hilarious.
So it's funny. I was selling stuff as I was there. I was selling telecommunications. I was selling this, that, or the other. And because I always wanted to have something to offer someone, because if you don't have something to offer them, they're typically not going to be interested. So whatever I was selling at the time. So I knock on this final house. I'm doing a little bit of business with them. And I'm walking home a different route than I normally did. And I see the back of a car in this really beautiful home, and it's a 3-car garage on this left side. And I'm like, I think that's a BMW Z8. Super rare, super limited car from the early 2000s. And I'm like, there's no way. I've never seen one in real life. So I, being dumb and naive, I walk right up that driveway, and I'm looking at the car, and I'm super respectful of cars. I've always been a car guy.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm keeping my distance, but admiring this piece of art. And I'm like, I've got to know what this guy does for work.
Yeah.
So I turn around, I see a guy out working on the pool, and I call out and I say, hey, who owns this house? I'd love to meet with him or her and just see what they do. And he yells, I was like, actually, I own the house. I'm like, oh, and I have no filter. And I'm like, oh, I thought you were just the pool boy. and he chuckles and laughs. And to make a long story short, we stay in touch through the end of high school, through my mission. And the second day I got back from my mission, he calls me up and says, hey, come over to my house. I want to put an opportunity in front of you. And I was fortunate to have 12 or 13 different offers when I got off my mission to get right into the workplace, because people knew that I had a drive to succeed, and I would do well. And his opportunity was definitely not the most money up front. There was a lot of building that would go into this, but the top side, a couple of years down the road, if I could stick with it, was phenomenal. And so ended up making the decision to go with him, got me into this international packaging and manufacturing world. And I was able to, again, definitely very blessed and fortunate, but was able to build a portfolio to where now it's 3 or 4 times what the industry average is. And was able to do that in a very short time frame because of just the drive to succeed, right? When you're on a commission structure, you eat what you kill.
Yeah, right.
And if you can't sell, I mean, you've done sales, right?
Yeah.
Everything we do is sales at the end of the day. But if you can't close those deals, doesn't matter how cool or hot or hip you are, it's not putting money on the table, right? And so got out there, hustled, met with executives, leveraged a lot of the connections I had from high school to get some very large accounts. And then it became a referral basis where I've worked with companies like Nestle and Mars and some very large CPGs, down to young mom and pops that we've been able to see go from ordering a couple hundred units to tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. So that's really what it got me. To answer your question, I got right into the packaging and manufacturing. It came from a relationship I built in high school, and we stayed in touch over the course of that mission. And it comes down to, right, do you go to school and finish that out, or do you get into work? And
that was the debate for you at that point?
It was a gamble, yeah, because
Really?
you got to remember, my grandpa was an assistant dean at BYU. My mom went to BYU. Very, very educational-minded family, and so to break that mold was a little different. And all of my siblings have went on to get degrees in high school. My sister is going to have her bachelor's by, I think, 18. Like, insane.
Yeah.
And good for them. Like, they're intelligent, smart people, but it
Yeah.
wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But it was something, you know, right off the mission, right? You're kind of coming out of this 2 years of, it's not real world, but it is. You could get a lot of experience, but you're kind of confined to what the purpose of the mission is. So you get out of that, like, okay, am I going to school? I'm going to do that way, or am I just going to take the gamble and bet on myself? And that's what I did, and it paid off to the degree it has thus far.
So, well, before I keep going with that, let me actually back up for real quick, because you talk about your story and what happened, you know, growing up to you. How old were you when all that happened with the
15.
foreclosure? You're 15.
15,
right?
yep.
So that was just a couple years before I met you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
What was that like for you, man? I really wanted to, like, how did you feel in that moment?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, it's tough because you take a bit of responsibility for it when you're young. And even though it had nothing to do with me or my siblings, you feel like, oh, did I do something wrong? Was it something that we could have helped to try to help, you know, whatever it might have been with your parents? And, you know, at the end of the day, it's not. There's nothing you could have done when you're that age. But it was tough. Like, you want to have this idealistic white picket fence family life. And then when that mold gets broken, it's tough. However, I would say I wouldn't trade those experiences. And again, with sentiment to my mom and what she went through, I would never wish that on her or anyone else. But I wouldn't trade the experience I got out of that for anything, because it taught me even more how to hustle and that you have to be able to be self-reliant. So it was tough. It was not fun. It was, you know, there's times where it's like, oh man, this is embarrassing. Why did this happen to me and my family? But what it taught me is why I'm where I'm at now, for sure.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if you know this. Your mom brought me a picture after that American Fork game. Do you know about this?
I don't. No, I don't.
Because did she tell you the story of what happened?
No, I've got to hear it. No.
She never told you?
No, I mean, so for those that don't know, my mom loves photography, and she took pictures from, probably 7th grade on of all of us. I haven't heard the story, so I'm excited.
So, you know how the American Fork game, all was building up to that game. That was a big deal.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That was a crazy game, man. That's still, like, that lives with me forever.
Yep, that was one of the biggest.
And your mom actually came over to our house after. She brought me to tears with this thing, man. She brought me this picture, and she was just like crying, and she was just like so happy. And it was a picture of like us we won the game, right?
Yep.
And she says, what do you see about this picture? I'm like, oh, like we won, you know? And then she goes, you see that window? And it's the background, you know, the PG rec.
Yep.
There's like a light on in the PG rec.
Okay.
In one of the windows. And all the other windows are dark, but it's us celebrating. It's a picture of that. And she says, she's like, there's a build up to this game. And I forgot what she said. There was just so much, you know, for it, you know, and meaning for it, for you and for her and all this stuff. And she says she couldn't watch because, you know, we were almost going to lose.
Oh,
right?
It was way too close.
Yeah, dude. And she said she couldn't watch, and that she went into the PG rec to say a quick prayer. And she turned on the light, and that was the picture.
That's awesome.
And so someone captured a picture of that, so she has it. She brought that to me.
That's
like
super
literally,
cool.
I was like, oh my gosh, like I was like, it was so. She brought. That's why I'm like, your mom's an absolute angel.
She
right?
is. She definitely is.
She's amazing.
She's awesome. I appreciate you sharing. That's an awesome.
I didn't know you didn't know that. Yeah.
No, so her though. Like that is. She is. You know, such a mom at heart.
Yeah.
Always from a very young age wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
And very religious, very devout in her beliefs, and has really put that through to us kids, right? She's never forced us to do anything, but always taught us to be very principally minded. And so that story is right in line with what she always is, and she's awesome.
My mom actually still has that picture.
That's sweet. That's cool.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was a really cool thing for us to hear from her, so we really appreciate her. Okay, now let's fast forward again. All right,
Okay,
I was just because, you know, like, dude, you know, I've never had to go through something like that.
Sure.
You know, so I hear that, and so, you know, you know, I've had a lot of big name entrepreneurs on this podcast, and it's just fascinating to talk to them about their stories and what they've been through.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I love the question to start this podcast, like, what's your story? Because that's what got you here.
Absolutely.
You know, it's the shit you've been through that gets you here, right?
It is.
And so, what good or bad, it's gonna get you somewhere.
Yep.
But it's up to you to determine where that's gonna be, right?
Absolutely.
How it's gonna drive you. And now, I mean, okay, so you had a ton of success in packaging and manufacturing, right? Huge industry, right? where did Pyvott come from? Because that was the next thing. Yep. Where the hell did that come from?
Sure.
How did that pivot?
Yeah, there you go. It's a good word.
How did that turn into what it is now?
So to give people an idea, so Pyvott is a new social media platform.
Right.
We're in our soft launch right now. So
Thank goodness, we need it.
I'm excited about where we're going with it. So we've got 20,000 plus users on our soft launch right now, targeting our big main launch in about a year, a little less than a year. So really the origin story of this is I was sitting on Facebook, scrolling through and saw a pair of shoes that I wanted to buy. I'm like, okay, I really like this. I'm going to buy them. And the process put me through, going through choosing your size, blah, 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 blah. And then almost towards the end of it, Facebook kicks me into the manufacturer's actual website. And I had to redo it. And I was just ticked off. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I mean, maybe that speaks, illy of how little patience I have, because it was only, probably 75 seconds worth of time.
Yeah.
I was like, I was so annoyed. I was like, why can't this be a more Amazon-esque experience, a 2-click process? So I call up my buddy Clayton, who's now my CFO, and I call him up. I'm like, dude, we've got to talk. And he's thinking, okay, you got a new girlfriend? Did you die? Did you get in an accident? Like, what's going on? Because I was like so amped about this. Yeah. I said, I think we can change the social media game. And this is how we can do it, A, B, C, D. And so we started for the first year. It was gathering data, gathering information, seeing if there really was a need.
Same time, market research.
Absolutely, yeah. Market research was a key piece of this to make sure, because if you're going to sink millions of dollars into something, you want to have at least a decent chance of having it succeed.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we went into it, and long story short, we went with it. Like, we put the money in. But to answer your question, it came down to I was ticked off that I couldn't buy a pair of shoes in less than 10 seconds. And I figured that was something that other people would relate to. And that core component of giving the customer an experience they enjoy ended up helping us with a lot of the core features and components that are in the soft launch, but also coming through in the main development phase now, that I think are going to really change the industry. And a lot of people ask, hey, do you think that you're going to be able to defeat Facebook or Instagram? No, we're not naive to say that because Pyvott arrives, they're all going to disappear. We want to bring a fair level of competition to that industry, though. You've got 5 or 6 big players there. Very little disruption happens. And I can tell you why. I mean, it's a very expensive endeavor, and you've got to have a killer network to be able to get the people and the personnel put together to get beyond the app and to leverage it. But I think we've got a good shot of doing that with some of the unique components. So, yeah, we're not naive. They're not going to disappear, but I want to take it toe-to-toe with these big giants of the tech industry and say, hey, we're going to do it better, and we're going to do it different. And I think that combination will excite people, but also it's going to force them to, no pun intended, but pivot and make a better platform for everyone else, or they can stay status quo and we'll have the opportunity to take market share as a result.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating. You're talking about the social media aspect alone is one thing, right? And having more social media platforms, we could talk about why I think this is important, right? But I think it's crucial, as a matter of fact, right? Because, you want to talk about the Electoral College and why we have the Electoral College in this country, because we don't want the population in New York and the population in California to tell the rest of the country what to do, right?
For sure.
Well, what about economically? Here's the thing. We don't have an electoral college, economically, because we got a majority of our wealth in this country and control happening in 2 areas. Wall Street, right? And then Silicon Slopes, right? Yep. There are these 2 locations that still are running the whole shit and telling everybody else what to do. So yes, number one, we need more social media platforms. We need more competition to rise up to level the playing field. I think that's a key piece of capitalism, right?
Absolutely.
Is you have to compete, right? Yep. And if you're not going to compete, like you kind of do whatever you want when you're the only one.
Sure.
All of a sudden competitors pop up, and if people don't like what's happening here, they're going to move over there.
Yep.
And so it levels the playing field and balances things out of saying, we have to do what the market tells us to do, not we tell them what to do, right?
Yep.
Which that's why I can't wait. We need more of this, right? But so that's one piece of it. But the second piece is genius, is the direct purchasing off of the app, right? Because I know TikTok's implementing that. I know YouTube's implementing that, because I all of a sudden now I'm like, oh shit, hey, you can buy off of Instagram, finally right off there, right? Or YouTube, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And they're starting to do this. And I'm sure you've looked into Douyin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is TikTok in China.
Yep.
Holy shit.
Yep.
Right? That's crazy.
Amazing technology.
Right. Incredible technology, which is but the biggest thing about it though is the direct purchase.
Yep.
Purchasing live on, literally when someone goes live, can purchase right there.
Yep.
And so I think that's what's cool about what you guys are doing, is you're taking that on not only to do that, but to make it better.
Absolutely.
Right. And provide even opportunities not only for the customers. I mean, I'm probably saying this because people don't know exactly what it is. You'll have to explain it to them. But not only providing, the benefit for the customer to be able to buy quickly, but having a benefit for the creator.
Absolutely. And I think that's
cool.
the key. Yeah. When we started the Pyvott conversation internally, there was really nothing to be said about on current social media with any options to buy in the app, right? On platform. And since then, our competitors have gotten that, which is fine. I have no worry that they're coming out with those components because at the end of the day, I think we're going to execute on it better and at a higher level. And so they're seeding the market for me. And I love looking at Instagram and what they've done because their store is pretty janky. It's getting better, but it's showing people that there is a need there and someone needs to step into it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited that they're starting to tease the market with that. But, what we're doing on the creator and influencer side and helping them monetize from an earlier phase, right? You've built a tremendous following for yourself and are an influencer in your own right. And so you'll be able to relate to this. In those early days, in the early phase of becoming that, it's tough.
Yeah.
The algorithm's constantly changing. What you have to do, the metrics you're trying to relate to and build, constantly changing. And so to be able to have a path to be in front of you to say, hey, this is how I'm going to monetize. And that's everything from, creative components that aren't necessarily unique to us, like partners with businesses and doing sponsorships. That's not unique to us. But really helping them create their own brand from scratch, from A to Z, from ideation to we are shipping and fulfilling to your end customer.
Yeah,
that is something that's going to change the industry. And does Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat, do they follow along that? Maybe not. But we don't care what they're going to do because we're going to execute at such a high level on that we are going to make that world for the influencer and creator 10 times better than what it is right now. And that, the thing that's cool about that is it helps the end user because influencers are great at one thing no matter what, I would say. A good influencer is great at creating content and getting the likes, the comments, and some of the virality.
The attention, yeah.
Yep, they're amazing at that. Now, are they good at running a business? 99% of the time, they're not.
Nope.
And so that's where we're going to step in and help with that. So I'm excited because as they have a better experience monetizing and building content, the end user gets a platform that has more engaging content. They're more excited to be on there. Because that influencer is, and that will drive more organic growth anyway. So we're excited about the components that we're building out that are all going to be under that Pyvott umbrella, all under one roof. So.
Yeah, no, that's so. What's crazy, like the manufacturing that you guys are going to be, doing, like the actual production, right? Now, do you feel like in Pyvott you're going to have more success and more maybe value in the company in the social media aspect of it or in the manufacturing side?
That's a great question. I would say initially, and this is something that a conversation we're having with investors currently, right? The manufacturing is such a stable industry.
Right.
And because of my background and my team's background in manufacturing and that world, it solidifies the opportunity of Pyvott for these investors. And I think it'll do the same thing for our users. So I think there's a lot of value out the gate because of what we're incorporating two big industries. Long term, the big play, the big home run for us as a company, but also the big home run to really change some of the world dynamics, I think, is in the social side. So we have both visions are very aligned, but execution, the manufacturing component will drive a lot of the success that we have on the tech side.
Well, it provides stability.
It does.
Right? Stable cash flow, you know, stable revenue, just stable everything because, when you get a good manufacturer, as long as my business stays alive, I've got a contract with somebody. As long as they take care of me, it's a good business, right?
Absolutely.
So that makes a lot of sense. So really the overall valuation, raising, taking it to a huge level, social media side. But basically you're basing on the platform of the manufacturing, which is amazing, by the way, because that's a huge problem right now.
It is.
Especially with the battle we're having with China. Right?
Yeah, the supply chain issue alone, we could have a whole podcast on
Let's
that.
do
right?
it, actually, because I'm experiencing it right now with my
it's
shit.
Nuts. Yeah,
right?
It's insane. And being in that world, one of the biggest complaints that I get with new customers, like, hey, I've got to have you help me because my supply chain has went to, crap. And I don't know how to replace these components because we were so used to and so dependent on other countries, Japan, China, Taiwan, the Philippines. And again, nothing against those countries per se, but I'm all for domestic products.
Same.
And I love helping the business here, helping our own economy. Will we ever be able to do everything? Probably not. Can we do the majority? Yeah. And so helping these large established brands or young starting influencers understand the value of that because, you could save pennies, you can save dollars by going overseas, but it doesn't matter if you don't have product on the shelf, because if you're not selling anything, that difference doesn't matter, because you might have 15-20% better margin by going overseas, but you've got 0% margin if you can't sell anything because you don't have anything. And that's been a huge component of what the excitement is because, again, an influencer, they're not going to know that. They're not going to understand what goes into what that hat you have on or the shirt that you're wearing. They don't understand that. And again, not that they couldn't. They could go and educate themselves, but they choose not to.
Well, the amount of time it takes to create is a full-time job.
It really is.
Right? It's a full-time job. That's why I have to hire a massive team to help me produce this stuff because I can't do it. Like I was doing it at first. I'm like, this sucks.
Right. It's time-consuming. And so, having an understanding there, and again, being able to have it from A to Z, where it's ideation to product manufacturing to marketing strategies, and then obviously being able to sell it through Pyvott, but then we'll leverage other platforms. If you're big on TikTok, okay, we'll leverage what you got.
Hell, Shopify.
Who cares? I don't care how you sell your product. Just like Nike doesn't care who sells their shoes. They just want shoes sold. And so helping them from A to Z is going to be, I think, a big game changer, and the way we're going to execute is going to change not only the tech industry, but I think manufacturing, because manufacturing is a very old school, industry, right? It's been around since Adam and Eve, right? I mean, you had to create things to live, and that's manufacturing. And so we've been in that forever, but bringing a flare of technology and the tech industry into manufacturing, I think is going to be exciting. But then the stability of manufacturing on the tech and social side is what's allowed us to have the success we've had thus far.
Yeah, right. So. No, that's incredible. I love that. Because it's funny, because actually, since we've just sat down, I've only thought of Pyvott as the social media platform.
Yeah.
I did not realize that, because that's why I saw you that huge building. I'm like, what do you need that for? Like for the social media, I'm like, is it that many servers you guys are housing? Like what could possibly be going down there, right? Yep. And now you're explaining this, I'm like, oh, dude, I remember our conversation. That makes so much more sense, right? Because honestly, I actually just thought when you first told me that it was just going to sync up with like a Shopify or basically be like a platform for other people to sell their product.
Sure.
I didn't know you were taking it as far as like the full-on manufacturing stuff, which is insane. It's genius, right? I fucking love it. But let me ask you this, right? In regards to manufacturing, an influencer, because there's a lot of influencers who watch this, right? Yeah, they look at the price difference of like, okay, 15-20% better profit margin from China. But then it takes 3 months to get here, right? Yep. Especially with the problems we're having with shipping, right? And maybe even like, is there going to be an embargo one day? Is there going to be potentially,
or it's just going to sit in the port because you can't even get it in. You
can't even get it in, and then especially what we had with COVID, that did not help anything, right? Like everything got shipped online, and I was experiencing this. Like everything was e-commerce, everything was being sold online. But then what happened? Oh, we can't get stuff manufactured quick enough. Oh, shit. Like, so we have all this demand, not enough supply, not enough happening. It's like, fuck, right?
Yep.
And so that's, I think, when people open their eyes, like, we need manufacturing in the U.S.
Absolutely.
We have to. Yep. We're so reliant on these other countries that if we don't start producing more manufacturing here, we're going to be in trouble, right? Yep. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the question is always this, is like, how do you compete with that pricing?
You bet.
I mean, I would say, number one, okay, well, there's taxes, involved with, overseas, but then there's also, like, shipping costs are insane. Because, the product might be a better margin, but shipping costs from overseas is nuts.
Yep.
Obviously, if you develop a good relationship, you can work things out. But for you, I'm sure you've got that question a lot, right?
Absolutely.
So how does the U.S. compete in pricing against somewhere like China or Pakistan, and let's be honest, where they pay their people a lot less.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking basically sweatshops.
Yep, absolutely.
So that allows them to lower the price. As opposed to the U.S., we have standards of what we pay people, right? So how do you compete with that?
I think it's twofold. I think first is the consumer education piece, right? Because typically, and I think we've seen this socially in America, right? And take politics out of it. I think most people want to know that their product is coming from somewhere where it's not a sweatshop, where it's decent working conditions at a minimum. And so as the consumer gets more educated, I believe that will help bring things back domestically. Because when you realize, really I won't go as far as say grotesque, but really borderline on that these groups in China and in Taiwan.
Oh, there's no question.
It's rough, right? And it's not good living circumstances for those individuals. So as people educate themselves on that, I think that will drive more domestic. Yeah. Number two,
maybe and this is moral thing.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think to answer your question more direct on the pricing component, right? Really the only way we can drive price down, in my opinion, domestically is to figure out, okay, we've got to have better buying power, which means if you choose a segment and brought 50% of the manufacturing back domestically from China, that's going to give us better buying power, whether it's at the company level or a government level, to drive those prices down. That's how you start to compete, because we are, I would say, probably across the board, always more expensive than a Chinese product, right? But the way you compete with that, and the way my customers compete with that right now is, okay, well, again, how much throughput can we get in the time it takes us to get product from China, manufactured, shipped, and delivered? Can we push product quicker by having it domestic and doing a more on-demand style, right? On-demand, I think, is, for a lot of reasons, but I think on demand is really the future of most product. Now, things like your toilet papers and your commodities, you forecast that out for eternity, because it's always going to be a need. But for everything else, it's not a commodity. I think there's opportunity for on demand, because your customer base is always changing. The amount of money they're willing to spend on a product will fluctuate, right? I mean, some products get really hot, people buy it no matter what it costs, and then it starts to sink and they spend less. And so I think that as we bring that into the mindset of, okay, well, how long am I actually having products sit? Because that has a true cost, right? Any warehouse, right? You've got a beautiful facility here. Every square foot costs you X amount, whether you bought it outright or whether you're leasing it. And so there's true cost. So having products sit is costly. And so when you educate the actual business on, hey, this is actually costing you almost as much as if you would just manufacture it here, have a shorter sell cycle, and get product moving through. Those are the conversations we have of how do we compete with China. Because if you go just bottom line to bottom line of just the product cost, I don't know if it's attainable in the world we live in right now. But it's giving them that entire picture, saying, okay, what's your true cost of that product before it goes to the consumer's hands? That's where they start to realize, oh, okay, it's actually not that big of a delta. And then how do we get the rest of that? I think it's by education and bringing back manufacturing. And I think that has to come from some level from the government.
Really?
I think so. I think from
that's
not
a scary thing,
not government getting involved in the sense of
Government getting
manufacturing, but government getting out of the way. Because I think that, if there were reasons that entice businesses to come to the U.S., they would.
We saw more manufacturing, when the last president was in.
We did. We did. And
we saw a big push for that.
We absolutely did. And I think that, you look at what countries like Ireland have done. Very lucrative business opportunities there from a tech perspective. That's why Apple and Google and Facebook have done so much in Ireland. They put programs in place to entice business. We should be doing the same thing to entice both technology to come back, but also manufacturing. So again, I am not a proponent for government getting involved in the sense of oversight and rules and regulations, but I think that there should be opportunities to say, look, we are going to entice businesses to come back, because every other country in the world is doing this. There's no reason why we shouldn't be as well.
I mean, even the state. I mean, like, just look at a state level. There's states that have bigger benefits for tech companies to be housed there. I mean, look at what happened here. Utah put a huge precedent for tech companies to be here. I think what was it that they like? You're a tech company over a certain size here, and if you move your thing to Utah, you don't have to pay state income tax and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's some crazy incentives. Well, I mean, look, Facebook came out. Beautiful facility. Again, a competitor, but I can appreciate a good facility. Beautiful facility in Eagle Mountain. Google is coming out. We've got some very large incentives for tech to move out, and it's working. I think what Governor Herbert did on that side was very progressive for the state. And I think
we have Silicon Slopes now,
absolutely, right? I mean, we have more tech companies on the I-15 corridor than probably anywhere else in the country, with the exception of Silicon Valley.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool what we've done, but what comes with that is, as those opportunities continue to grow and as people start to see that, that's where a government, whether state or the overall arching for the country, can ruin it. Right? If Governor Cox decides, hey, I'm going to start decentivizing for companies to come here, well, that's going to have a huge hit on the overall GDP for Utah. So
no question. Is he planning on that? Or is he
I don't know.
that?
Nope. And I just use that as an example of someone that Governor Herbert did a great job of enticing, and I think Governor Cox will continue to do that. I'm not as familiar with Cox as I was with Herbert, but hopefully he keeps the good thing going, because that shows that you can entice business. And you look at California, right? For a variety of reasons, companies are leaving California for other states, like Texas is a big winner. Utah's been a big winner in the tech sector. And I think we're going to continue to see that if these state governments don't entice business to come and work with them.
I mean, so we're talking that on I guess you could call that a micro level of the states, but then you see it at a bigger level of like countries, we're competing with China. And it really is China. I can't see us competing with manufacturing in, Mexico or Pakistan. There's just no chance that they're going to be able to compete to the level like China, right? So I
Well,
would say
they're
that's
completely reliant on us to sell their product.
Yeah, right.
China doesn't need us to sell their product. They
Yeah.
could still move product, but all these smaller countries are reliant on us to use them.
Right.
Otherwise, you could crush entire countries by just cutting off
Yeah.
the ability to use manufacturing.
Right. So, I mean, so back to kind of what you're saying about like, breaking down the costs and educating people on that. From my understanding is that what you're saying is that basically in order to have the manufacturer also be, I guess what we say, like the provider of the shipping, like the, what we call that?
Like full turnkey kind of a
fulfillment,
thing.
sort of speak,
distribution,
right?
Yep.
And I think what you're saying is that is where the biggest difference could be made. Correct me if I'm wrong here, because to me it sounds like what you're talking about is like, educating people on what it costs to have, things housed in your own warehouse, right? If you're not up to speed on it, having it manufactured one place and then moved into your place, talk about two different points before it gets to the customer, as opposed to manufactured and fulfilled in the same place, which is what Amazon basically does for their products, right?
Absolutely.
Even though they're, the whole fulfilled by Amazon stuff with other people, right? But having it manufactured and fulfilled in the same place, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is the way to really cut down costs, expand, your outreach, expand, your level of like how quickly you can, provide, make it a little more flexible for people, right?
And again, that's my opinion.
Okay.
That's my version and what I believe is happening with that. And I think it speaks to because we're seeing customers and clientele move that direction. So I think that's really where it is housing that entire turnkey package and helping people understand what is that true cost versus piecing together multiple things, right? You gave a great example of like, hey, when you're building merch, like, you've got a team for that now because it's so time consuming.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And how much were you spending on payroll for that? How much were you spending to get
or how much
of your own time that was
resulting
in not being able to go and make other components working for you?
Or just me taking that time away from marketing it.
Absolutely.
Right, putting up my stuff on social media. Like there's time involved.
So what's your true cost?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So educating that way and giving, education's one piece, but then you have to be able to deliver on what you're presenting. And I think that's what we're building at Pyvott is an opportunity to say, yeah, we're going to give you that entire portfolio and that package. And from a business perspective, right, I can be a lot less greedy than these large companies because I don't need to make the same margin on certain components of that. Like maybe distribution's a lower margin component than manufacturing for us. And that's fine because we can build the entire business model on, hey, we want a customer to go A from Z for us. Different letters in that, I guess you say 26-step piece there are going to be higher margin and some are going to be lower. And if the overall can be competitive at the end of the day with shipping it overseas or close to it, I think we have a compelling argument as to why this model works.
I mean, literally, it's like if I were to describe somebody like what is Pyvott before, I used to be like, oh, Pyvott's a social media platform. That's what I told everybody. Yeah. Like, hey, Pyvott. I'm like, yeah, it's a social media platform, right? Yep. But now, low key, I would actually say it more as you're describing it. I'd be like, oh, it's like if Amazon had a social media app.
That is, I love that you said because that is what we tell investors when they're like, okay, so dumb this down to one sentence. Like, okay, Amazon and Facebook had a baby. That's what Pyvott is.
There you go. Yeah.
That's what it is.
I'm like, because I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, like, okay, so, because I would say like, oh, like, TikTok and then maybe some Spotify stuff in there, but it's a social media platform, right? Yep. But no. This is like Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if Facebook had a baby, if Amazon ever had a social media platform, this would be it.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's dope.
Yep. And it's fun. We've actually had conversations with some high level folks at Amazon about what we're doing because
poach them.
Well, there's there's a couple things at play there, right? You always have the opportunity to try to just compete straight out. Yeah. But then there's also some wisdom in partnering with the right company, and so we're having conversations that could prove to be very lucrative on both ends because at the end of the day, we are going to go after the Amazon segment whether we partner with them or not because people want
with Amazon.
Yeah, we've had those conversations and we've all said, hey, what does it take to do it ourselves?
Yeah, right.
Because you can going after some of these large giants. Yeah. It's a big enough risk going after a Facebook, Instagram conglomerate. Then you bring in Amazon into the play, right? I mean, we're going after the two largest companies in America, or pretty much the two largest. So we've had strategic conversations beginning, but again, one way or another, we want that experience to be Amazon-esque while you're on your social media platform.
Would it be more, and now this is an interesting question, would it be more of a TikTok and Amazon had a baby? Because you guys are going to be incorporating a lot of the reels. From what you showed me, I saw a lot more video heavy content and like appearance as opposed to maybe more of like a picture posting platform. Again, obviously I haven't seen it in a long time. Probably things have changed and updated. But from what I saw when you showed me stuff, it was more of maybe video content. So maybe is it more of like TikTok and Amazon or is it Facebook?
I would still say it's Facebook, and this is why. So TikTok has essentially zero way to do photo. You can do a still photo and make it just loop on itself, essentially.
Right. And there's no like words you
Correct,
can post.
yeah. So I would say it is definitely more Facebook oriented, but whether or not the content that's on Pyvott is more video versus photo, I think the users will decide that. We've provided, and a couple of the cool components about Pyvott is you really can control that experience. So if you only want to see video on Pyvott, you can control it and say, I'm only going to see video in my feeds. But if you want to see photo and text posts as well, you can do that. So, you know, I do think it's Facebook because we have the three pillars. The three pillars in social media, in my opinion, are photo, text, like Twitter, and video. Yeah. And will there be a fourth and a fifth? Maybe. Maybe, you know, the audio component comes in. I think what Clubhouse did was interesting. Yeah, very. Their management team and the decisions up top, I don't think were great, and that's why we saw a huge spike and then it dipped off into nothing. I think they got a $4 billion or something valuation at one point. Shit, so yeah, they when their C round or something like that. But anyway, with those three components, we've given the user the ability to control what they see and how they see it. And in our long-term components of what we're building out, even more granular control, which we're excited about. So I would say it is Facebook because Facebook offers all three. But to your point, it could end up being that Pyvott is 90% video, and for us, we don't care. Like it's what the users want to post and it's what the users want to engage with. But you know, you could maybe even simplify it and say if Amazon and pick your social media platform. Merged. Right.
I mean, hell, even then you could break down like the type of video content because now there's short and long, form content, right? Absolutely. YouTube with the, I guess YouTube's incorporating shorts and all that, but we're talking short form versus long form, so it really breaks down to a lot of different types of content, which is almost annoying people.
It is.
It's annoying me actually. Instagram. Here's one thing I wish about social media. I wish Instagram would just say, "Hey, we're going to dominate the space of pictures."
Absolutely.
And then Facebook. Here's what I wish. I wish Facebook would say, "We're going to dominate the groups."
Yep.
Right?
Because they do an amazing job with groups.
But they've killed it. They've killed it though.
They have.
They destroyed it because your engagement in these groups. Way too much. Yeah, too much, too fast. Like, why is Facebook and Instagram trying to be TikTok? Why are you trying to be YouTube? Let YouTube be YouTube. What are you Google next? Like, come on now. It's like, listen. I think this is why they're killing themselves is because they keep, almost cannibalizing each other and, and losing what they're good at. It's like, listen, if I want pictures, I go to Instagram, which is great because then it has a platform for people who love the picture content, the photography, which is what Instagram was known for, right?
Absolutely.
And this is why it grew. This is why we loved it. Yep. And then TikTok came out with the short form content, which was at first, Vine. Yep. But then TikTok came out with it, and you know what? They dominated. They did. Right? The short form content, they are dominating, right? Yep. And then YouTube comes out with shorts, and then Instagram comes out with reels, and guess what? It's both just the repurpose of what we create for content for TikTok, right? Yep. You create a TikTok thing, and then you just, you
disperse it on the other channels.
Yeah.
I love that you bring up Facebook groups. I thought when they initiated that, and I remember seeing it in 2012, 13. Right. I could be way off. Yeah. But that's when, in my mind, I fail to remember the groups thing. I thought it was brilliant. Amazing move, but you're absolutely right. The quality of the group's experience is degrading because they're trying to do all these other things. And I think Instagram's most recent update that they ended up retracting with I think it was it Kylie Jenner and Kim Kardashian?
They were pissed. Yeah.
So the CEO of Instagram,
it was like, make Instagram great again.
Yeah, right. Make Instagram again, right? Like, and so the CEO backed it up and said, "Hey, we messed up."
Oh, did he get rid of that?
He did.
Well, good. Yeah.
So it's back to where it's again, you can go either or. Now they are putting a heavy emphasis on video. Yeah. They're trying to do it in a little bit more of a sneaky way, but that big change that rolled out 4 weeks ago or so, they retracted that within a week. And it was funny because it proved...
That's the power of an influencer.
But also proves, in my opinion, coming from a competitor standpoint, Facebook has lost who they are.
Yes.
And
question.
So the fact that you let two people control what you're going to do, because here's, if I'm sitting there as Instagram, I was like, we're going to move to the video content. I'm sticking with my decision, and I'm going to know there's collateral damage. The fact that they wouldn't, just from a couple people, proves that they do not know what their long-term direction is, or at least can't execute on it. Right. So I think that shows blood in the water.
Well, I'll tell you exactly my thoughts on this is I think Zuckerberg, hey, listen, everyone's going to listen to this, be like, who the hell are you? He's worth billions and billions of dollars. Sure. I get it. I have no room to talk. He's a billionaire. I'm not, right?
And he built a great company.
He did, except for the fact that Zuckerberg has been a snake his entire life.
Oh, 100%.
Zuckerberg has stolen everything he's produced. And yes, he steals it, makes it better. Okay, sometimes he makes it better.
Sometimes, yeah.
Because Facebook was not his idea. That bastard stole it, right? Yep. And then guess what happened? Instagram, he bought from somebody else. WhatsApp, he bought from somebody else. Oculus was not his thing, right? And you start seeing, and now Reels. Now, like he's just always trying to copy everybody. He's always trying to take what so he's not, for my idea, like, I'm just so sick of seeing that, right? Instagram just trying to, and it's funny because we don't talk about Facebook anymore. We talk about Instagram, and then Facebook. Even though Facebook, and then it's now Meta. It's like, come on, man. And but the fact that they're up, they've obviously acquired so many businesses. It's never going to go anywhere. Like Facebook is not just Facebook. They own everything. I mean, they buy everything, just like Amazon and Google buys everything, right? So the valuation of their company is so sound, at least for now, because it's not just based off of one platform. Correct. It's based on multiple different things. But at the same time, when we're talking about the social media platform, there's no question Facebook's dying. There's no question Instagram's dying.
I completely agree.
Instagram is dying. I think this was a big nail in the coffin. Yeah, you might retract it, but you've done some damage. Right?
Absolutely.
You've done some damage. You're going to have to go above and beyond to try and fix that to get users more intrigued on using Instagram, because there's no question the data shows there's more people using TikTok than they're using Instagram. They're pulling up TikTok faster.
And I would say, if you really want to look more at a macro level, what's really fascinating about this is that if you look at the demographics that are the strongest on social media, it's that 16 to 32-year-old bracket, right?
Right.
And if you look at where those individuals are moving, I would say, because if you keep the demographic of 32 to 50, if that stays on Facebook and Instagram, that's fine, that's great. But they're not the ones that are these influencers most of the time, right? And they're not driving the sales of product. It's that 16 to 32. And so that's the biggest demographic that Instagram is seeing loss in right now, that are going over to TikTok. And again, are they deleting their Instagram? No. But where is their primary focus? It's TikTok. And exactly like you said earlier, you make a TikTok and then you roll it out as a reel, as a short, as a whatever else, right? I think Twitter had their fleets. Was it fleets? I think it was.
Oh, dude, we didn't even talk about Twitter.
They had their thing, but like you roll it out as everything else, but you use TikTok, the platform. And one of the things we say at Pyvott is our goal, our 5-year goal is if you're going to spend an hour on social media, I want 30 minutes of it. Use your other 30 minutes however you want, but we want to become the primary. And that's what TikTok is doing a great job of saying, okay, people are going to spend, unfortunately, 3 and 4 hours on social media a day, and they're getting 2.5 of that. It's insane. But because they're the primary go-to, it's going to hurt Instagram. And we're seeing that, right? Every time Facebook releases a quarterly earnings, those calls are not pretty. I mean, I don't listen to them. I read the transcripts after, and you can see the numbers. But seeing them having consecutive losses, I would never have bet that 3 years ago that Facebook was going to see consecutive losses. Like, you wouldn't think that. But because they've lost, I think, their core direction, it's going to hurt them.
I mean, could you imagine? What if Facebook said, hey, we're going to dominate the groups, and then we own Instagram, and Instagram's going to dominate? Dude, that is 2 huge things that you're dominating. Plus, then you dominate the WhatsApp thing, which is basically the main platform to message worldwide. So it's like, okay, let it be a dominant factor in those facets, right? But then you start just meshing them all together in this weird, try to conglomerate way. It's like, fuck off, right? Because
they're scared of competition.
They are.
They're scared of competition, and they're scared that they're going to lose a couple percentage points of their control. And it's funny to watch because that I think will actually end up hurting them. If you don't welcome competition, because what does competition do, right? It forces you to be better or forces you to die. And so you have 2 options there. And Facebook's not going to die. And so, they kind of know that, but they're not really willing to be better. They just, like you said, they take a lot of other people's ideas, whether they buy the company or they just rip it off. But I would say they are genuinely scared of competition, and they have the money and the dollars to back up that fear and to make it go away a lot of times. So, but it's definitely not a traditional, in my opinion, capitalistic approach. It's I'm scared I'm going to hide under the covers. I don't want competition, which I think is, it's degrading to the capitalistic ideologies that I like and that I go for. Because what is Pyvott? Pyvott is absolutely 100% a competitor, and we have just as much chance to fail as to succeed, but we're going after it from a competitive perspective, not a, high and mighty, we can do whatever we want, which is where Facebook's at.
Well, here's what's the important thing about what you're doing right now is some people will be like, oh, who do you think you are trying to take on Facebook, Instagram? Like, come on now. It's like, like, hold on. I don't think you realize the advantage someone has coming into industry afterward. right? People don't realize that's a huge advantage to be the new thing. People don't get that. Look at what happened with TikTok. If you like really just Instagram was new, look what happened, right? TikTok was new, look what happened, right? The new upcoming one is probably the most dangerous of them all.
Completely agree.
You know, and that's what's so cool about it is, and especially now at this point, there's a craving in this country, probably around the world, of new. And maybe it's because people's, you know, attention spans are so short. I think TikTok's a perfect example of that. You know what's fascinating is actually, this is a side note, Netflix and all these movies are dying. And the reason why they're going from a long form content of a movie that's an hour and a half, 2 hours, down to like breaking it up into 6 series is because people's attention spans are so much shorter. And they're shortening. So what's funny is people would rather sit for 3 hours on their couch on TikTok than they would watching a TV series. So now there's a competition for attention with TikTok taking it even from, we could go to the level of taking it from Netflix, right? And taking it from TV, right? So people do not want to watch that stuff as much. The younger generation has this attention span that's just minute. It's crazy.
We see it in the music industry too. We're dealing with a lot of musicians with Pyvott. And that's why a lot of these big groups, these big name bands are releasing a single. And then they wait 3 more weeks and another single. Where it used to be,
no one buys albums.
Here's the new album, here's 15 songs. And then the top 1 or 2 is what people will listen to. Now they're forcing everyone to listen to all their music. But it gives that attention span because you can listen to a song on repeat for a couple weeks and be happy with it, and then it gets old. And so right then, there's my new song. Here's my new song, and it's amazing because it's exactly that. The engagement level and the attention span is near zero with this generation, but this generation is the one that's spending all the money. And so you've got to appeal to it.
Oh, you do. But from an entrepreneur perspective, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs here, so I'm going to just bring this piece in, is if you worry about that, you shouldn't. Because that's your advantage. If you can have an attention span to stick with something for a long period of time, if you can separate from the rest of the crowd, let them be, you know, the sheep who are just, you know, having the attention span. Let them do that. Because if you can separate from that, if you can have enough discipline to not get caught up in short attention span things, you're going to dominate at whatever business you do. Right? You're going to be able to dominate in your industry wherever you go, whether it's real estate, whether it's paint manufacturing, whatever. You're going to be like, our generation ain't hard to compete with.
No, it's really not.
I'm really not worried, you know, like
completely agree. Well, I mean, I've seen that twice. You've seen that. In manufacturing, when I started there, that was something where it took 3 years of grinding and finding customers, knocking on doors. Just, I mean, you know, you're getting denied 90% of the time building that portfolio. And if I would have quit at any point during that, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. You saw that with Alpha, right? There, you went through some ups and downs. I remember from our last lunch, you were telling me about the ups and downs, and I remember when you were doing the real estate component before with that gentleman. I won't go into that, but I remember the stories. That was like, but if you would have quit at any point in that and said, "Oh, squirrel, I'm going this direction," or "Shiny object, I'm going here," you wouldn't be where you're at. And I think the majority of our generation, unfortunately, and then Generation Z coming up behind us, their attention span in the business world is very, very minute, which gives the opportunity to any decent entrepreneur that can say, okay, I'm going to ride the wave and I'm going to stay on my vision, to be able to absolutely capitalize.
Dude, look at it was fascinating. This is a side topic, but like, I love this topic because it's actually crucial for people to understand is this is your competitive edge, to just be disciplined and stay with something, 100%. Right? Look at the length of books. I just got my book in now.
Congratulations, by the way.
Appreciate
it. Fun.
And you know what? I actually, through the entire publishing process, they kept saying, let's keep it short. Let's keep it short. And I'm like, but there's a lot in here. They go, it's better to do a lot of short books now than it is to do one really big one because people get intimidated by the size. Look at books from older times as compared to today. Big, thick
700,
honkers.
900 pages.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like even when we were growing up, we would read the Harry Potter books, the Aragon books, right? We had big, thick books, right? That we loved to read. Hell, the Bible, right?
That's a pretty big book.
It is a great one, right? But now you look at it, and this is even publishing. We're even talking about books now, dude, where they're like, it's better to have 8 to 10 short books and like a series than it is to have one big book. Because people won't buy it, they won't read it. But if you have short, small books, so they kept saying, keep it short, keep it short. I'm like, what in the world? So I'm now looking at this perspective of my content. We will shoot this for an hour, and you and me can handle a conversation for an hour. We can handle a conversation for weeks, right? And then you go off and do your thing, and then we come back. Let's pick up that conversation again, right? Because we've developed that. But some people can't even do that.
I would say most people can.
Most people
I had a conversation with a gentleman who wanted to come and work for Pyvott. And a young kid, he was in his, 19, 20, right in that range. And he could not keep my eye contact for more than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And he was all over the place and looking all over. I'm like, well, dude, just focus right here. You want this job.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing you for this. And I'm pretty lax. Like, I am not some hardcore interviewer. Like, it's pretty relaxed. Just like, tell me your story, tell me what you're doing, what we're doing here, having a conversation. He couldn't do it. And it's funny because that's really where this generation is. My little brother Spencer, he just got off his mission, and he's coming into the workplace with a bachelor's degree from high school, right? He's ahead of the game there.
Yeah.
But he's competing against these other individuals who are really, it's not even competition. He's like, I don't really have to compete with that person, guy or gal.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to really where we are as a culture and a society, which is unfortunate. But to your point, it gives an entrepreneur who's going to be dedicated to their vision and have that resiliency a huge leg up. And you combine that with the ability to be nimble. Facebook can't be nimble. Way too much red tape, way too corporate. Being able to be nimble in addition to focusing on your vision, I think is a game changer for anyone that can do it.
Dude, that's so exciting, man. Dude, I'm so proud of you, everything you've done, man. You deserve it, though. Like, just watching you, like, you've inspired me, bro. And you know that. I keep sitting down with you and, like, you're doing all this stuff because I've had my vision, but I'm like, how the hell? Like, and that's why I keep sitting down to lunch with you.
Yep.
And I know we DM and, like, dude, let's go to lunch, but it's like, and you got your shit, I got my shit, but it's like, dude, I've watched you, I've loved it, and I'm like, I'm just proud of what you're doing, dude, and I have no doubt you're going to succeed with this because you're going to pivot.
Yep.
I'm not even saying that as a kid, because you will pivot and you'll make it work. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, is you'll make it work.
That's right.
Whatever direction ends up happening, who gives a fuck? It's going to be successful, right? Absolutely. And that's why they say a lot more people, when it comes to investments, you start investing on the jockey, not the horse.
Absolutely.
Right? Because the horse can be, switched in and out, but the jockey, that's the one running the whole show, right? Yep. So you're the man for the job. Dude, it's fun to have you on here, man.
I appreciate it.
This is a good conversation.
Fun to continue the conversation over the years.
Yeah.
Great having you as a friend, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun to watch you grow and watch your experience and,
thanks, man.
And kind of going out on the same pathway, so it's a lot of fun. Thanks
I appreciate it, bro. Well, listen, if anyone wants to get a hold of you or learn more from you, obviously there's Instagram, right? Josh Jackman on Instagram, right? And then Pyvott.com, is that where we find it?
Pyvott.com is where you can do that. We're available on the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then if for any other personal inquiries, they can reach out through our customer service line.
Awesome. Okay, we'll link that in the bio. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend.